Back on CBS Sports HQ with more breaking news as Christian McCaffrey is headed to the Bay. Going to take part in that San Francisco 49ers offense, and for that, the asking price, a second, a third, a fourth in 2023, and a fifth in 2024 with Christian McCaffrey, now the feature back in San Francisco. All right, for more, let's break it down with two pillars of the Pick Six pod. That is Will Brinson and Ryan Wilson here working it late as Christian McCaffrey. News comes down that he's heading to San Francisco, guys. Let's remove the name brand. Let's remove the team. Let's just say second, third, and fourth next year and a fifth in 2024 for a running back. A very good running back, the 13th ranked running back by fantasy standards this season. Ryan Wilson, does the ask meet the price here?
It feels sort of rich, I'll be honest with you, Joe. And you mentioned it before we came on. I'm going to tell a little behind-the-scenes story. You mentioned John Lynch sort of leveraging things in San Francisco, and I think that's a fair question to ask. Our guy Stephen O at Sportsline just sent us an email and said, here's what happens when you add Christian McCaffrey to the San Francisco 49ers. You go from predicted 9.57 wins to 9.7. The running game wasn't necessarily the issue. Elijah Mitchell got hurt, yes. Jeff Wilson's doing fine. Tevin Coleman's back. Tyrion Davis-Price, who they took in the third round in this recent draft, he's on the roster. So it makes you wonder what the plan is. And I think part of the plan probably is this. Kyle Shanahan looks around, sees we're 3-3 in a division that is not as great as we thought it was. There's more of a threat from Eugene Cyril Smith III than there is from Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. And he's thinking, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and overpay for Christian McCaffrey, and we're going to win this division, and I'll worry about all that other stuff later. And I get that because this is the very same division where we heard the Rams with those T-shirts about not worrying too much about picks on their way to a Super Bowl title.
So, you know, the price is really interesting because my initial reaction was that's not enough and or not what the Panthers wanted to get in return. But, you know, if you look at it, it's a lot of picks. You say, oh, look at all these picks we got. Scott Fitter is a known draft trader, so I think he wants to have the ammunition in this draft, particularly with Carolina, like, you know, basically honing in on the number one pick and needing a quarterback, needing ammunition to move up. But when you add it up, like if you take where San Francisco is right now, like, you know, in the standings, and you take the draft capital based on the new charts that have come out, you know, in the new CBA, and you add it all up, it essentially like boils down to being a late first round pick. I got it at roughly 195 draft points, which is right between 32 and 33. Now I think that's pretty good for the Panthers if they can get in totality a first round pick. Now, if the Niners go on a deep run and make it to the Super Bowl, which they've done with Jimmy G once and nearly did it a second time, then it would be worth maybe like a mid-second rounder. If the Niners somehow crater and miss the playoffs, this could be like a really nice, you know, total package sort of worth a mid to mid-late first-round pick. Christian McCaffrey is, I mean, look, Kyle Shanahan's offense allows running backs to explode. His dad's offense did the same thing. Christian McCaffrey would be, if he is healthy and plays the rest of the season for San Francisco, there's no reason to think he won't have a monster season for the 49ers in that scheme because of his quickness, because of the way he can explode off those one cuts. But it is a lot of, as you point out, Joe, leverage in terms of John Lynch. And you sort of wonder, with the Trey Lance injury happening this season, and like, is anyone in San Francisco questioning what you know Shanahan and Lynch are doing and asking, hey, like we need to see some wins because we gave all these picks for this quarterback he's not even playing, and so you shove all in on the Super Bowl window. It's going to be a results-based situation, honestly.
Yeah, because what if the result is a Super Bowl with Jimmy G at quarterback and everybody's feeling great, but Trey Lance is healthy next year and you got all this McCaffrey money on the books now? That's a bridge that we can cross when we get there, but the compensation package is what it is, and it's what they paid here as we take a look now at the 49ers schedule upcoming. With all due respect to Norv Turner, Joe Brady, Ben McAdoo, Kyle Shanahan's offensive mind can be, let's say, position agnostic at times. Do you see him taking Christian McCaffrey to a level we haven't seen yet, Will? Maybe. I think that is a possibility. Look, we've seen, you know, look at the way he used Deebo Samuel in the backfield and the creativity that he's utilized some of these skill position guys before. I mean, there's no creativity in Carolina. Christian McCaffrey, if he is healthy, it could have an absolutely explosive second half of the season. Now, the only reason I hesitate, Joe, is because we saw him, I believe in 2019, which is the year Ron Rivera was fired. Basically, he led the league in scrimmage yards,
led the league in touches, was a monster that people expected to see for the next few years. Right. So I think the answer is maybe, and it really just depends on his health and how they want to utilize him in the passing game, in the running game. So, I mean, you could do, honestly, you could put Deebo Samuel in the backfield and split Christian McCaffrey out in the slot, and that's a pretty basic idea that Kyle Shanahan has definitely thought about. I mean, there's a chance for some real fun stuff in San Francisco here.
No, I think that's right. And it's funny you mentioned swapping Deebo and Christian McCaffrey. And maybe the plan Kyle Shanahan has is to get 11 Deebo Samuels on the field, in which case that's a good plan. I'm just worried about the cost. And the fact that you hesitated, Brinson, I think tells us a lot, because you are certainly as pro Christian McCaffrey as anyone. And when he's healthy, you're right. He is absolutely unstoppable. But this offense under Kyle Shanahan and his dad before him, Mike Shanahan, is one in which you can put, and no disrespect to all the running backs that come through and have success, you can put a 6th or 7th round pick in there and have success. Elijah Mitchell, 6th round pick. And go back through the history of the Shanahan's offensive coordinating it up, and you can find those players. So I'm just worried about the price. But as you mentioned, Musso, if the end result is a Super Bowl or even getting to the Super Bowl, it's worth it. The issue is if you struggle, if you flame out before you get to January, and then you're faced with paying the bill, and the bill in this case is no draft picks. In fact, next year they have 2/3 from compensatory picks, a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th. Even the Rams are like, man, you don't have very many picks. So you got to get this right. Christian McCaffrey's a great player. We know that. He just has to stay healthy.
We appreciate our NFL draft expert bringing us all the numbers here. Speaking of numbers, the computers work fast. You alluded to some of them earlier here, Will. Win number total goes from 9.5 to 9.7. Not a huge jump there with McCaffrey. Divisional chances go from 49% to win the division to 52.5. Playoff chances from 67.9, so right there at 68 to 71. No major jumps here. Championship proposition, 4% to win the Super Bowl, 4.8% with Christian McCaffrey. So I'll pose the question this way, and you can take first crack here, Ryan. How much does this change the way you see the power structure in the NFC right now?
I'll even be a little more granular. I'll start with the NFC West. I think this gives the 49ers a leg up in what was a really tight division, and in a division where I wasn't even kidding when I said that I think the Seahawks have to be in the mix. They're all 3-3 except for the Cardinals, who just won and are now 3-4. As for the entirety of the NFC, I mean, they're in the conversation behind the Eagles. The Eagles are the best team without question. Dallas is playing really well. The Vikings are 5-1. We're not making fun of Kirk Cousins because he's doing the things he needs to do. And the issues are with Green Bay and Tampa Bay, the two teams with Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So I think the 49ers are in the top 3. This gets them in that conversation inside the top 3. Garoppolo, for as much as I give him a hard time, he makes enough plays to get you where you need to be. I don't think he and Kyle Shanahan are always on the same page. That's okay, as long as you win football games. And with guys like Deebo Samuel, as Brinson mentioned, along with now Christian McCaffrey, that gives you one more weapon. Now, the analytics say that the win totals don't go up by that much, but we'll see. I think it'll be fun to watch, if nothing else, and maybe it's a plan to have Jimmy Garoppolo with the ball in his hand fewer times for chances to make mistakes.
The other thing, too, about this, and I think Ryan's point about the NFC West hierarchy is really important because, we have an undefeated Eagles team. We have a 5-1 Minnesota team, a 5-1 Giants team. Cowboys are 4-2. These teams are good, but they aren't necessarily like, a 5-1 Buffalo team that is going to keep running at the same pace they're at. So at 3-3, if you're San Francisco, and you have to believe that if you add a guy like Christian McCaffrey, it gives you the ability to sort of push yourself over the top in a conference that does appear to be wide open. Again, even with I love the Eagles, picked them to win the conference, but I mean, this conference is winnable if you're San Francisco if you add Christian McCaffrey. The other thing, too, is they're not expecting Elijah Mitchell back until, I believe, after their bye week, which would be the first week in November. Jeff Wilson is not a guy that Kyle Shanahan has traditionally looked at and thought he can be a feature back and can carry the ball 25 times for me. Tyrion Davis-Price, the rookie they really like, he's been banged up. He's back at practice now, too. I think Kyle Shanahan isn't even looking at his running backs and saying these guys aren't good enough. He's saying, what happens if I run out of them? And now for a late first rounder, I can get a guy in Christian McCaffrey who, there are clear ties between, you can find the familial ties, right, between Ed McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey, the Shanahans, of course, all that stuff. It makes a lot of sense. You know everything about this player from a character perspective, from a personality perspective, how he'll fit in the locker room, and how he'll play in your particular offense. You have a chance to get him at a cheap cost, maybe buying low because Carolina's losing, and it gives you an opportunity, if again he's healthy for the rest of the season, to really improve your running back room.
All I'm asking is that these GMs keep the phones close, because I love talking to my boys. Fellas, great work as always, and that conversation will continue on the Pick Six podcast, I am sure. And don't forget to download and subscribe the Premier Pod in all of the NFL. That is the Pick Six Pod. Will Brinson, Ryan Wilson, John Breach breaking down all the news and notes, including blockbuster trades like this one. Download, subscribe, and enjoy the Pick Six podcast. All right, let's approach this from the fantasy standpoint with our CBS Sports fantasy expert, Heath Cummings. Heath, this is a big one. They're not all big ones. They all have implications, but this is a big one. With Christian McCaffrey now a part of Kyle Shanahan's offense, we will explore all of the ripple effects here, but beginning just on the base level of Christian McCaffrey in a 49ers uniform, that makes you think what?
Well, it makes me think the rushing efficiency is going to be much better. Listen, he's been stuck on a bad Panthers offense with a bad offensive line. He should be awesome running the ball. They take guys off the street that average 5 yards per carry. So that part I have really no question about. There is a big question mark when it comes to the passing game. The 49ers have thrown 13 passes this season to their running backs. That balloons to 24 passes if you include fullback Kyle Juszczyk. Christian McCaffrey's already seen 43 targets this season. So it's either going to be a major change in offensive philosophy from Kyle Shanahan, or we will see fewer targets from McCaffrey.
As we take a look at the other pieces there in San Francisco, how do you affect the rating of one Deebo Samuel, of a Jeff Wilson Jr., of these other pieces on the San Francisco offense that we see so multiple week in and week out with now a feature back in the fold?
Yeah, I think Jeff Wilson's time as a fantasy relevant running back is likely over for as long as Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. I would imagine a lot of people will be dropping him and picking up backup Panthers running backs in the next 24 hours. I do wonder if this hurts Deebo Samuel just a little bit. As I talked about, the 49ers have not thrown to their running backs that much. Deebo gets a lot of those targets. Wonder if a few more of those go to Christian McCaffrey. Could be a small ding for George Kittle as well, but the overall offense might be better. It could be more touchdowns for everybody.
Does it affect the way you look at Jimmy Garoppolo for stream starting? We are now in the bye weeks and having to pick people up off the street and put them into our starting lineups here. Is Jimmy Garoppolo a viable option in that vein, or do you see Christian McCaffrey, as you said, more of a extension of this running game rather than an extension of the passing game?
Well, I do think that this could help Jimmy Garoppolo. If there are fewer rush attempts for the 49ers and more dump-offs to running backs replacing those rush attempts, then he's obviously going to get credit for those fantasy points. This week against the Chiefs, he is absolutely in the streaming conversation because of how bad they've been against quarterbacks.
All right, let's talk about the Carolina side of this conversation because we must. I don't know. You take it from here, Heath. What does this mean for Carolina? I mean, not a lot of fantasy starters when you look at that roster prior to this news, and now you lose Christian McCaffrey. Upgrade, downgrade, no grade. How's it go?
Poor DJ Moore standing like Will Smith in the empty living room on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah, it's he's the only guy left, and there's really not much hope for him unless Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold get back and play better than Mayfield did earlier this year. People will add both Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, and they should be added. We got very little clarity on which one of them will lead the running back room in touches. I would expect that Foreman will handle most of the early downs and the short yardage work. I would expect that Hubbard's going to handle a lot of the stuff in the passing game. There will probably be more productivity in the passing game. They are both high-end flexes this week.
It is an empty room in Carolina, but a room filled with love in San Francisco. It's all love when Heath Cummings here. Thank you, Heath. All right, taking a look at some of that production as we will get that headshot updated here in the days to come as Christian McCaffrey is headed to San Francisco, now a 49er, and a nice piece in Kyle Shanahan's offense. As you take a look at his production thus far this season, 6 total touchdowns, ranked your 13th overall running back. But now with an offensive mind like Kyle Shanahan, if the health stays intact, got to imagine those numbers will balloon.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.